Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling, as we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhollow today, where, we'll be chilling as per usual. Just recording now. Oh yeah, Talos Principle 2, the thumbnail art got uploaded. I will say this was like one of the fastest turnarounds I had for a thumbnail art because I did not have a lot of time to do it. And do I think it's any good? I don't think it's my best work, I would say, but I think it's suitable enough. Because at the end of the day, the thumbnail art is just meant to be, if I look at that thumbnail, do I know what game this is? And I think it's pretty clear what game it is, I suppose. Well, maybe less clear if you don't actually know what the golden statue like thumbnail art thing is. But anyway, hello everyone. Right now in Fawnhollow at 6:06 PM on Wednesday, February 28th, 2024. It's definitely one of them where I'm just like, don't look too close at it because the details are rough, I would say. Anyway, I feel like most people are here to watch me actually play the Talos Principle 2 game itself rather than comment on the thumbnail art. Because Talos Principle is an alright looking game, I suppose, but it's not a game which is particularly known for its aesthetic style. I think, personally, I think it's more known for its thought-provoking discussions and thought-provoking puzzles, I suppose. But your mileage may vary, that's totally fair. Everyone's got different tastes after all. But it's exciting, honestly, like, as soon as I started playing it again, I was just like, oh, I'm just like so back in the groove. It felt great. But yeah, what else to talk about? The fourth and final intro session of D&D is happening today. This one is probably the most, I don't know if it's the most standard of all of them, to be perfectly honest, but it's a relatively normal one, especially, after the third one being a little bit strange. The third one I think I definitely learned a lot from because of how different it is from like I haven't even played a D&D session like that as a player, so I was just like, I don't really know how to DM this, so I'm just going to sort of wing it and see what happens. But the players had a fun time, hopefully. Unless they're lying to me, which would be, wild to say the very least. But yeah, they seemed to have like a nice day on doing it, and it was both a fun time for me and I think a very good learning lesson as well, especially because certainly as one of the more interesting characters, I think, in the campaigns, which it took a bit of time to like get used to it, to be like, oh, exactly how, we've got to make sure we're on the right page, I suppose, with each other of how this is going to work narratively, and I think we found it by the end, which is pretty cool. That's kind of what the warm-up session, I suppose, is for, if anything. Yeah, it also, I suppose, this is the Animal Crossing as well. I give little spoilers for behind the scenes, I suppose, for the people who were actually in the session. The session was actually going to be a lot harder. I had a lot more enemies, which I took out because I was like, okay, these enemies are quite strong, it turns out. And quite difficult combat-wise to beat. So, there was like significantly fewer enemies, because I think I probably overcompensated, because after the first session, if you're not keeping up, I suppose, with the story, the first session, literally the players took no damage. They just absolutely stomped through the entire thing, and I was like, okay, I need to like make it a bit harder. And the second session, it got a little bit close and dicey at times, but they still did like incredibly well. So I was like, okay, maybe it does need to be a bit harder still. And the third session, it was just like, okay, these enemies are probably too strong. It was like, as soon as the first fight happened, and like after it happened, I was like, okay, I can't put all of these enemies in here. This is going to be ridiculously, like, way too hard to do anything with. One thing I definitely underestimated was how hard it is to do anything if all your items are taken away from you, which it sounds obvious to say, I'm going to be perfectly honest, but saying it out loud, but I was just like, oh, you know what? There's endless boundless possibilities and creativity in D&D. You all find a way, but at the end of the day, still bound, I suppose, by the limitations of the system. Anyway, so the fourth one will be today. It's a much more standard one. It's kind of like, because I guess it will have happened by the time this episode comes out. It's like a dungeon crawling. It's not really like a proper dungeon crawling, because I was looking at traps, because I was like, oh, let's put some traps in this like dungeon thing, and it was just like, oh, the traps do like 11 damage, 12 damage average. They're going to die if we set off a trap. And I was like, okay, I could make like a weaker trap, or I could just save the dungeon crawling, I suppose, for another time. It's an infiltration of a bandit hideout, is what I'll say. I think this might be the shortest one, to be perfectly honest. There's not as much to go with it, because I was just like, this one has a much sort of like weaker story, like plot hook sort of thing. This one is sort of like very much just a like, oh, here's stuff which is happening. Kind of like the first one, I guess. But the second and third one definitely had a lot more of a plot element, I think, to it, or story lore-based element with it, or start the intrigue of a story. This one certainly does, but whether I suppose they get that far in it or not is another question entirely. So yeah, that should be a lot of fun. Hopefully. I don't know. What I am glad about is the fact that like the busy stuff is now over. Like I've done the Talos Principle Thumbnail art, all the initial sessions are like complete and done. Like we're getting now into the groove of things, and you know, hopefully now, obviously the players are now comfortable, so I don't need to worry about like, oh, you know, do they know what to expect now, what's going to happen, and that sort of thing. Now the onus is not the onus is on players. Like obviously I still have to like create a story and like elements of it and that sort of thing, but now the onus of driving story is definitely like more handed over to the players, which will be good because it means that they can have more reign over what goes on. They'll be for them, so you know, now roleplay can now bounce back and forth, and discussions can now bounce back and forth between each other now that people are being more introduced, I suppose, to the system. And it's also because, like, of course, last weekend I was busy for like almost the entire weekend, so I had basically like no time to do everything. So I was like, I'm glad I got everything done. I stayed up probably later than I should have last night to get some things finished off. But you know, so be it. I will sleep easily tonight. I mean, I'm not tired. If you're concerned, if you're going like, oh dear darling, you're not like sleep depriving yourself. No, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. It's just with Talos Principle too. It's just that thumbnail, you know. You're always your biggest critic, and I look at it and I'm just like, I wonder how much nicer it would have looked if I spent a bit more time on it. I just need to like learn how to render things properly, because I was just like, I was going to do it like using line art like I did with the first Talos Principle one. I was like, no, come on, match that art style of Talos Principle. It's going to be lineless because it's all 3D models and that sort of thing. But I didn't want to do it because I was like, I have no idea how to render that, I suppose, so it actually looks okay. I think my one looks kind of more like metal than I think he's like stone or something in the game. I don't know. I played like the first 2 episodes, but that's about it. I haven't really played much further after that, so you know, that will have to be left to see exactly how things pan out. I am excited to play more of it, certainly, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. I mean, I know we spent 7 minutes talking about nothing. I mean, I guess we'll just talk about, you know, sometimes you just get busy with doing things. I will say, it's a very sweet thing where basically every single person, almost every single person, I suppose, most of the people who are taking part in this D&D campaign was like, are you sure you want to do like 2 campaigns? Are you okay? Are you okay with this? And I was like, yeah, I'll be fine. And honestly, it has been fine thus far. To be like, it was always going to be like a rocky sort of setup while I had to sort of be like the driving force to make sure that things like get set up properly. But I think once it gets into a rhythm of things, then it gets quite easy. Because now, you know, after I've had like 4 free practice sessions already of how to run a D&D session, like I'm so quick now. I like setting up things like, oh, just go on, find a picture, you know, like right click, add scene, and name it. Here you go. These are the settings I need to put on. Boop, 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 done. Bam. That's very good. Theatre of mind scene done in like 10 minutes or something. The maps take a bit longer, but even then they're super quick. Like, I'm now like reasonably fluent at using the system, which is great because I should be. Like, the faster I can set things up, the better. It was just the fact I needed a thumbnail at the same time, which I think made things a bit more difficult. It was also my fault, because I definitely knew the end of Railbound was coming for ages, but I also knew the end of... what was the story game we played before Paradise Killer? It's actually just gone from my memory. I can't remember it anymore. What did I play? Oh, Goodbye Volcano High, right? Was that before? That was before. Wow, I actually completely forgot about that. But it was because 2 of the game series, I was like, they're ending really close to each other, so like I got to get started. So I did get started on one of them, and you know, that's why I did a Paradise Killer one. That's why I think the Paradise Killer one looks pretty decent, to be honest. Apart from the rendered water looks terrible because again I forgot how to render water. But Dee herself looks pretty great in it. Spent a bit more time, I suppose, making sure that looks good. But then it was like, oh, announcement. Oh, you know, I'm going to be busy this weekend, as it turns out. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that was the time I was going to do the Talos Principle thumbnail art and a little bit of session planning. But now it's just like, okay, Talos Principle thumbnail art finished. Like, I did most of it on Monday, and then I finished it, like, yesterday. And then, like, the planning for the session, I did, like, all of it, like, yesterday. And then a little bit today, a little bit this morning, but not too much. Because mostly, as I said, I actually set up, like, quite a lot faster, and I realized that this session will probably be like an actual short. This session will probably be the only session which is going to hit the estimated time of 2 hours, probably. All the others, I said, like, I estimate to be 2 hours, and the first one was like 3 hours, and the second one was like, actually I think the second one was like 2.5 hours maybe, so not too far off, and the third one was like 3.25 hours or something. It was like the longest, and this one will probably actually be 2 hours is my guess. I don't know, unless the fight is but this one's a lot more fight heavy, I think, compared to the others, which I don't know necessarily if that's good or bad. But I am going to try and sneak in. Here's a little secret. I'm going to try and sneak in a little bit of like survival-esque gameplay in there, because both the two characters are like kind of like survivalists, like wilderness survivalists in a sense. I don't really know how to run that like for just like a little bit, so we're just going to improv and we're just going to kind of see what happens. The ball is in the player's court, so to speak, which is always a dangerous gambit, I think, to do, especially because like one of them has literally never played anything like this before. And one of them tends to have very, very crazy, the other one tends to have very, very crazy ideas, which, you know, I'm going to have to be like the bad guy and say no to probably quite a few of them. But we'll see how it goes. I don't really know, to be honest. I generally don't know how things are going to pan out, which is kind of like the fun of it, isn't it? It very much is the fun of the entire situation, I suppose, in the first place. Kind of like having like improv, I suppose, in general. I don't know. I guess I kind of appreciate improv more now that I do it more. Of that sort of thing. Oh, I forgot to say that. Let me just respond to one of my players. There you go. See, the thing with OBS, of course, is that you don't get Discord notifications anymore, so I don't know if someone's messaged me or not. I can certainly see another friend's message me, but this one will probably have to wait till after the episode. As is, you know, things that as they do. I don't really know what I'm talking about. What have I been talking about today? You know, like planned planning time, I suppose, is kind of a thing. I tend to be quite reasonably regimented with how I do things, you know. I think that's probably part of the reason I've managed to keep up this sort of like upload schedule. Is that I tend to plan out, being like, okay, I'm going to record things on this day, I'm going to record this on this day. I feel I probably will be tired on that day, so I'm not going to record on that day, etc., etc. You know, things I planned out about a week in advance. Okay, maybe not a week in advance. Okay, even I'm not that crazy. Like, some things are planned out in advance and some things aren't. Like, the key to life, I suppose, of planning is not to plan, like, as if every single thing is always going to go perfectly. You should plan with the hope that things would go as expected, but also you got to give yourself a little bit of wiggle room to make sure that things, if things go awry, that you can account for it. This is just one of the more extreme cases where I was like, oh, things went really awry, where I was just like, oh, I lost 2 days of, time, essentially, to, like, work on, like, activities I was interested in, you know? I forgot what I was going to say about it, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, losing 2 days of your plan, of any plan, especially weekend days, which are full days, is always, you know, a bit of a surprise when it comes to things, which is why, you know, I need to build up my backlog again, to be perfectly honest. I used to be a lot better, I suppose, at it, but, you know, obviously recently I've been a lot more busy, you know, things have been a lot more chaotic to a certain degree, but I used to, like, back in the old days where I used to have, like, a month worth of backlog, which I think a month is probably too long for a backlog of videos, because that basically means the next 8 episodes I can't put into practice anything which people are saying, which, you know, it's a deficit, I suppose, of recording in advance. The benefit in recording in advance is if you're like, oh, suddenly I don't have time to do something, hey, you can do this. I was actually thinking about it because we're actually coming up with another year of Animal Crossing under our belt, which is crazy. So I was starting to think about, oh, what's the next Fawnhallow art going to look like? I think I settled on a theme of what I want to do. I'm not quite sure exactly how it will be executed, so we're going to have to sort of figure that out as we go. But I've got a general idea of what I want to make it look like who's going to be in it. Obviously all the Fawnhollow villagers are going to be in it, and Dee's going to be in it, but I'm just like, what part of Animal Crossing are we going to be centering on today? I don't know how many years we're going to be doing this Animal Crossing, like, series thing. So, but there's still quite a lot of NPCs, I suppose, that we can get through to actually cover and make an Animal Crossing themed thumbnail art after them. But this one I feel like is very sort of New Horizons focused still. Well, actually, technically, I have been going a little bit back and forth between two ideas, but I actually might just combine the two ideas sort of together, because they're both thematics which I think work with each other well enough that it shouldn't cause that much conflict, I think. Or not, or I might just stick with one. Again, I don't really know exactly how it's going to pan out, but I was thinking about it because I was like, I got about a month, I think, to work on this thumbnail art, and the thumbnail art usually takes me like 20-ish hours of that sort of thing. So if I work on it like a day every single day until like next time, then hopefully I won't like this year, if you don't know, if you weren't around for the first week or so, I basically like was too busy that I couldn't finish it in time, the thumbnail art. So ended up being like the first week I just had like this really temporary like MS Paint thumbnail art, and then on April Fool's Day I remember I uploaded like a blurred version of a thumbnail art because April Fool's Day was like a week after like the celebration anniversary of Animal Crossing. I also totally forgot about it. This is a leap year, isn't it? So tomorrow is going to be 29th of February, so we're going to have an extra day, I suppose, accounted for within the day count for Animal Crossing. So if we just go on for 365 more leap years, then I'm going to lose a year in the year count, which is going to be crazy. No, I'm joking. So it's like I delayed for like 8 days, basically, not uploading a video, and then not uploading a thumbnail art, and then I finished it. And it's a nice one, I would say. It's going to be hard, I think, for anything to top year 3's thumbnail art, because year 3 I thought was like, oh, this will probably be the last year, or like one of the last years maybe I actually do Animal Crossing, because I think it will probably like end up pivoting into a different game or something instead, or I'll stop doing like these daily, etc, etc. I don't know, but I don't know, people like Animal Crossing videos, what can I say? But for some reason they've had like quite the uptick recently. I think it's probably because it's hit the sort of point where it's like 1,400 episodes is quite a lot, like, well, 1,400 days, more episodes I suppose. It's quite a lot. Quite a lot of people are like frequently commenting, being like, wow, I can't believe you kept this up for so long. Little do they know, I've not been keeping up literally every single day, as I repeat every single time. I missed 4 days or so in the start of the first, not the start of the first year, in like March, maybe the start of second year or something like that, or near the end of the first year, I can't remember. It's when I didn't know I was going to continuously do it over and over and over again, and there was no Happy in Paradise, so there was no reason to record, nothing to really record gameplays wise in advance. If I would go back in time, yeah, I would record them in advance, why not? Just like keep the day streak going. But I'm sure there's other people who have a daily vlog in Animal Crossing, probably better daily vlogs than I necessarily do, because again, mine aren't really Animal Crossing vlogs anymore. I'm just sort of Animal Crossings in the background, if anything. Anyway, I'm going to round this episode off here. I don't really know what I'm talking about. I guess this was like planned planning disruption. Maybe that's absolute like word avalanche of a title, which makes no sense, but whatever. But I'm going to wrap this episode off here. So if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope you see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye bye for now.